First, welcome. My name is Miles. I work for Bitcoin at Square. I'm lucky enough to, I do product on the Cash App, and I recently helped roll out our open source initiative, Square Crypto. What a privilege it is to be living and building at this time in Berlin. That's the 600,000th block is being mined. I got a feeling we'll all look back very fondly at this time in the coming years as we continue to progress on the front lines here. This panel is about payments and merchants. I want this to be interactive. I want you guys to ask each other, to build off each other, to ask questions, to challenge me, and just kind of get into a nice flow. I want to leave time at the end for the audience to get involved as well. And if you're in the audience and you have a burning desire during our back and forth, feel free to raise your hand. We'll see if we can dial you in. But to start, I want to go around and have everybody each one of you introduce yourself and your company. Maybe spend 1 minute or 2 minutes, and probably most people are pretty familiar. But just in case, let's get the overview over with.
Hello, everyone. I'm Britt Kelly, and I work on BTC Pay Server, which is an open source Bitcoin project that is enabling merchants to accept payments without KYC. And it's a great project. If you're not familiar with it, please check it out.
So I'm Sergej from Bit Refill. We're a startup that lets you buy anything you want with Bitcoin. We do this using digital goods, so phone refills, gift cards, and we're gradually working our way across the globe. Lots of countries being added all the time. Other than that, we do some Lightning utilities as well, utility services and so on for people who are interacting in the Lightning network and building services and so on. And you're going to be hearing more from my colleague Justin about that later today.
Hey everybody, I'm Will. I'm with Fold, and we enable everyone to earn Bitcoin while shopping at major retailers, historically with Bitcoin and Lightning, but most recently we also added fiat. Our kind of goal is to make Bitcoin accessible, kind of rewarding for everybody.
Hello, my name is João. I come from OpenNode. We are a Bitcoin payment processor. We offer a Lightning network. We basically allow businesses to easily accept Bitcoin as well as developers to build applications on top of it.
Cool. And just before we dig into the payments part, what part of Lightning really captivated each of your attention and made you decide to build a business on it? Was it increased privacy to help Bitcoin scale? Because you saw a massive business opportunity. Like what initially brought you in and keeps you in the Lightning space?
For us personally, it was the fact for the first time, let's say, we will be able to settle Bitcoin instantly. And that was a very important mark, I would say, in the space. And all the new business model opportunities, such as micropayments that are now possible, we wanted to allow people to be able to build that economy. So that's our goal.
So Fold's always been about spending using Bitcoin in the real world, and it became really apparent that on-chain layer 1 was never going to be the place that was going to happen in at least a mainstream large-scale way. And so we knew that it was going to be a layer 2 solution, and Lightning came just in the nick of time for us to make that transition. And for us, it's about finality, low fees, but for us, important thing to Fold is also privacy. When you're shopping at major retailers, Lightning gives an opportunity for privacy for mainstream consumers that hasn't been available historically.
Yeah, so I mean, we've also worked with all kinds of different ways in regular Bitcoin payments and so on. I think the idea of a payment channel network isn't really all that new. It's been around since, I think it's even mentioned like in the early Satoshi writings. So like when Lightning came around and it had traction, it was a pretty no-brainer idea to hop on that bandwagon.
So the way that I got into Lightning is a little bit different because BTC Pay is an open source project. So part of the community in BTC Pay is very diverse, and once we started adding more Lightning tools to BTC Pay, there were so many things that I wanted to learn, and I wanted to help other people learn about it. So I kind of had to dive in just to be able to help other people. And there's tons of different ways you can use Lightning. It's really easy, and that's kind of why I got into it, was to help other people. I had to teach myself first.
Awesome. Well, I'm a huge, huge fan of all four of you guys' products, and payments is a really large space. But with this panel, we cover four really interesting niches, kind of two on the merchant acceptance side, both which I believe are playing really important roles, and two more on the consumer side with Fold and Bit Refill. Let's go down the line and say, like, who is your target user? Like, who is really taking advantage of your services right now?
Great question. In BTC Pay, there are obviously merchants using Lightning services, but also it's a lot of just individual users, self-sovereign users who want to use Bitcoin in a way that doesn't require centralized services and, take control of their financial freedom with BTC Pay.
I guess like we talk a lot about like living on crypto and having the circular economy and all of that. Like our ideal customer is people that live and want to live a bigger and bigger chunk of their life inside of the Bitcoin economy, and both earning, gifting, getting paid coins and buying whatever they need. And we as a service like try to, with like lowest effort possible, find the broadest possible use cases for people, and that's kind of our driving force.
At Fold, we are primarily focused, with payments, you have the consumer and on the merchant side, and we're definitely primarily focused on building demand on the consumer side. And the way we're doing that is lowering the barrier to entry as much as possible for people that hold Bitcoin, have Bitcoin, and use it and find value out of that. But also more recently to enable people maybe who haven't had exposure to it and are curious about it, or people who just have never wanted to spend their Bitcoin to also be able to use it and accumulate more. And so we're about getting the broadest net possible to consumers in a way that's enjoyable and rewarding. But we also see as merchants as customers as well. We interface with their point of sale systems and some of their internal credit systems, which means that they are watching what we do, and so we frequently have exchanges with them about the value that potentially Fold could bring, and actually any other Bitcoin businesses could potentially bring to their business model in the future.
Our target is mostly merchants, obviously. We are a Bitcoin payment processor. Merchants from various sizes, from enterprise rate sizes to small business owners. Our goal is basically allow anyone to join this Bitcoin economy, to allow all people that own Bitcoin to actually spend the Bitcoin and live on Bitcoin too. But yeah, so basically any business developers as well that want to experiment with this technology, but they don't have probably enough money or liquidity to put on. They don't want to deal about more complex. They're not as technical familiar with Bitcoin, but they still want to do something on top of Bitcoin. So that's also our target.
Cool. Now I'm going to come in a little hot here. A lot of people there's people in the ecosystem that insist that hodling is a daily active user that counts as being a DAU. This is obviously a payments panel. Do you guys reject that notion?
I think one of the properties of Bitcoin is actually stored wealth. So in my personal opinion, I think that's a use of Bitcoin. So yes, it's using.
Cool. And I think that's a totally valid response. But I guess maybe we can transition it to like how important are payments in growing Bitcoin and Lightning adoption, and the daily active users using it every day. And feel free to answer the original question if you want.
Yeah, I think payments I mean, Bitcoin as a savings and a spending technology, there's use cases for both of them. Historically, the use case for hodling and the infrastructure to enable hodling has been there, and it's been there for a very long time. On the payment side, it's still building. Everyone here on this stage is currently building the infrastructure to actually make that an enjoyable, rewarding experience. And so that curve of adoption has taken a little bit longer. However, they're both mutually beneficial. Whether you want to hold, you're going to be benefit by people spending, and vice versa. And so they lend value to each other. And the sooner that we're able to really nail the spending side, the sooner we'll get the actual circular economy that we're always talking about.
I think if I can, I think Bitcoin is built as a trustless, permissionless system where everybody can do whatever they want. And so it's important not to be moralizing in either direction and let people just do whatever they want. Like from perspective of hodling, all coins are at every time being hodled by somebody. The number of coins being hodled is constant, and it's all of the Bitcoins. They're always being hodled, right? So counting, like, you can count it if you want, but I don't know what benefit you get from that metric. There's 18 million we recently celebrated Bitcoins. They're all being hodled somewhere. I guess maybe some of them are like in an unconfirmed transaction somewhere, and it's a gray area. But I think. And the same with like holding or selling. Like every time there's a trade, somebody buys Bitcoin and somebody else sells Bitcoin. So every time that somebody buys Bitcoin, there's an equal amount of Bitcoins that are being sold at any given time. And so it's not like from my perspective is like we're not trying to get anybody to stop hodling. We don't need to, because if people hodl, that means the price is going to go up. And then somebody's going to bid higher, and then somebody else is going to sell their coins. The amount of coins that are being sold is constant at any given time. It's the same as the amount of coins that is being bought. What we're trying to do is like to create a better experience for people who are selling their coins. And there's a lot of benefits with buying something with those coins instead of selling them on an exchange. There's the privacy, there's the convenience, there's the living in the circular economy, a good feeling about it. And so we stress those things, and we don't need to convince people that they should, sell their coins or whatever. Do whatever you want. If you want to hold them, somebody else will sell theirs.
I agree. I definitely think that every time Bitcoin is sold, it is also bought at the same moment. Right. But in terms of payments being important, I think that the Lightning Network enables way more payments. With BTC Pay Server, we have, easily small payments in apps, and whether it's a crowd fund or a point of sale system, payments are becoming easier and easier. Like you're saying, you can make small payments. It's not, you don't have to get out your hardware wallet and, do your whole process. You can just, maybe you're using Joule, some Chrome extension or browser extension. It's getting easier and easier. So I think that Lightning is really helping definitely the user experience of the payment process, for sure.
Yeah, and whether you're hodling or using it for payment, it seems that this is good for Bitcoin,
right?
As the meme says.
With tools like BTC Pay Server and OpenNode as well, this technology allows people to acquire Bitcoins, right? Through exchange of goods and services and the labor of their work, the fruits of the labor, and so on. And all of this is also, probably most people agree that it's better for the circular economy if people acquire Bitcoin by goods and services rather than buying them on a centralized, government licensed exchange.
Cool. I want to get into kind of the state of Lightning right now. Your four companies probably have some of the best insight into the activity being done. So, open question to any of you: are there any trends you see within this data? Another thing I know a lot of people are probably curious about is the split between on-chain versus Lightning. So, if we can kind of talk about what we're seeing in the space right now.
So Fold just launched our app, and actually there's no on-chain payments in the app right now. You can still do it on our website, but in the app it's Lightning or credit card. And already what we're seeing is that around 60% of all payments are going through Lightning versus our on-chain. And another thing that we're seeing is that people spend more and more frequently with Lightning. It matches a behavior. There's a lot less friction in the whole process. And so we're starting to see this payments infrastructure that just hasn't been around actually come to fruition. And we have not an insignificant amount of hodlers and hardcore maximalists who have said, oh, I would never use Fold in the past, but now that I can spend my dirty fiat and get Bitcoin, I'm very happy to do so. And then we wait a couple weeks and they are DMing us saying, I found a couple ways to arbitrage cheap Bitcoin, and now I'm spending Bitcoin because I can get even more cash back on your Fold app. And so we're seeing behaviors start to change as the infrastructure and technology is easier to actually use it. So.
Awesome. What about an open node?
I mean, for us, we were primarily known as a Lightning company, so it makes sense that most of our transaction volume is in Lightning, so around 96 to 98% is through Lightning. However, the transaction value, it's 90% on-chain. So that means, like, in terms of transaction count, most of them are powered by Lightning, but in terms of the actual value of the transaction, the on-chain wins there. Those are our insights.
So we've kind of seen, after an explosive year this far, we've kind of seen channel and node count plateau a little bit. My sense is that it's much easier recently, and there's a growing number of private nodes and private channels. Is this consistent with what you guys are seeing from your vantage point? And to me, that's actually a good thing. But I would love to hear what you guys think.
I will just want to mention that BTC Pay Server cannot collect data on any of its users in terms of nodes or channels. But what we do know is that if users want to have a Lightning service, they must run their own Lightning node inside of BTC Pay Server. So that's pretty much the only data that we have.
So from what we see on Bitrefill is that the Lightning users is like they're very similar to, like, if you look around. This is what they look like. They're early adopter type people who are excited by the new technology and willing to travel to learn about it on a conference and so on. And so and I actually think that, like, our numbers for Lightning have been relatively flat over the summer. So we are a little bit in line with on the proportionate list, with Lightning growth being a little bit slower. I think actually a part of it may be that everybody's holding off their announcements of new cool things and products for this conference, and because it's been this like crazy explosion of new things that, like, in the past month has been relatively quiet. So I think from my gut feeling is that we're going to see another big jump up after this, as all of these services start getting their first users and so on, and we're going to see another couple percent up for the Lightning.
I think builders are also just getting much smarter on how they're using Lightning, and I can look back, when we launched, Lightning Pizza as kind of our experiment in the Lightning space, from where we are now, and our Lightning infrastructure, thanks to our Lightning team, is just miles away. And so I expect to see more better use of our Lightning. There's going to see, essentially just smarter ways of using it, and with that, we're going to see more private nodes and all of this that are going to change the metrics that we need to look at.
So on a tangential note there, as a general rule with new technologies, we tend to see them adopted first by those most in need, those on the fringes, or those participating in dark or gray markets. We certainly saw that with Bitcoin. And I'm curious, from your guys' vantage point, do you see this happening with Lightning? And is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I would say it's a great thing. Privacy is good, and personally, I think that it's our right to be able to transact privately.
Have you heard of I don't know. I haven't heard of many darknets or anything using Lightning yet. So I'm very curious, and I don't know if there's ways to support tickets or whatever that you know of, or if anybody else knows of any dark web.
Is that bearish if they're not?
In a way, I think so. From my point of view, the Bitcoin community are not the Bitcoin users, and dark webs tend to be not members of Bitcoin community. You rarely meet them at conferences, or maybe you do and they just don't sort of don't reveal themselves. But the broader Bitcoin is much broader than what we're seeing here, and I think it's like that with the dark web stuff as well. That, they're not seeing. They're not seeing a big reason for them to change from what they're using now. On-chain fees are low, and their thing generally works, and probably their challenges are other, than just making payments better and cheaper. I don't know, but I haven't seen any indications of lots of dark web activity.
Cool. Moving on. Bitcoin's been always has been, but in 2019 in particular, it's been on another level memetically. We've seen two critically important memes this year: stacking sats. Shout out to Tales from the Crypt podcast, and the concept of sats back. Will, can you talk to me about why this is such a good engagement hook?
We always talk about in Bitcoin about adoption. We talk about institutional adoption, sovereign adoption, but looking at rewards alone and the idea of sats back is an enormous opportunity. If all the rewards that were issued last year in the United States, or in the United States alone, 16 million Bitcoin would have been distributed to people just last year, which is insane. And so it is an incredible mechanism for widely distributing Bitcoin to people at a massive scale that is directly in line with their existing daily behaviors. And so I think we need to be smart about how we do that and how fast that happens, because I think, at least for Fold already, we're seeing how powerful that actually is. And so the meme has been wonderful for Lightning, even just changing the idea, going to Satoshi's, first Bitcoin, all of these have been amazing about changing the mindset and, again, helping create this idea of payments and spending and bringing that back to Bitcoin. It's all from Lightning. But sats back for us has been an incredible way of turning no-coiners into Bitcoiners very efficiently, and I am very confident that rewards will become ubiquitous about the space. And now it's about creating other infrastructure that really brings the benefits of Bitcoin to everyone. So get them in with the sats back, reward them with privacy, censorship-resistant payments, borderlessness, but you're going to get them in with the sats back to begin with.
So I see a lot of potential in something like spend and replace, obviously with a catchier name in the future, but the idea of automatically buying back the sats that you spent to maintain your sane fiat to Bitcoin ratio. Is this something you guys see occurring, something you've thought about, or something that you think will be powerful?
So we actually see a decent amount, not a majority in any way, but a decent amount of our customers say that they bought their Bitcoins recently specifically to buy stuff on Bitrefill. Now, I don't think it's primarily the spend and replace kind of thing. I think it's more that there's certain products and services that we allow people to get that are otherwise tricky, like remittance cases and so on. So people actually acquire Bitcoin for specifically to buy stuff with us, which was unexpected, to be honest. But it seems that it is happening to some extent, and we also hear that a good amount of people are willing to even use regular fiat credit cards to buy stuff on Fold. So I think it's clear that there's a mix of solutions that is occurring, and I think people are doing their own mental accounting. Like, do you want to keep the same amount of Bitcoins, then you can buy some more. And if you don't, then you can, again, there's there's so many different variables and parameters that it's super hard to generalize Bitcoiners. They're all very different, and most of them are not even here. So it's hard to say.
One of the behaviors that we're seeing with the recent announcements with Spark Swap, Olympus, and even Wire.
Amazing. All three of those are really, really awesome products.
Those fiat to Bitcoin on-ramps will completely change a lot, and they're only in their infancy right now. And we're already seeing people directly go in with from fiat into Bitcoin, directly spend their Bitcoin, on Fold specifically to take advantage of higher sats back, but also it opens up for real-time spending, which also helps with the capital gains issues. We almost don't have any exposure to that when they're immediately bought and sold in a moment. And so I think we'll see more of the technology that helps facilitate the spending use case and replacing as well.
Awesome. Well, on Thursday night at Room 77, which was the most on-brand bar I've ever seen. Hopefully everybody here can make it while they're in Berlin. It was awesome to see everybody excitedly pay for their drinks using Lightning. João, can you talk to me about this point of sale that they were using there?
Yeah, so there is one member in the community, Ben, who actually came up with an idea of creating an easy point of sale. And first time he reached out to us, like he wanted to do something like, how can I connect my OpenNode account through this point of sale? And that was his first, I would say, version of the point of sale. And then he started to slowly use Raspberry Blitz, I believe, and that's what they're using at the Room 77. So they use their own node. And yeah, so it started just exploring. It's just people in the community, enthusiasts, like to build stuff. So we just, but yeah, I was there at the bar. Everyone was very excited to pay. And I mean, I think people that are in this room, they are very enthusiastic about this. And like one thing that Lightning allows is like to see the instant feedback thing. And for us humans, it's really important to see something happening. So I think it's great, yeah.
I totally agree with that. And a member of the San Francisco Bitcoin Devs meetup, again, named Ken Sedgwick, has put together one of these as well. I keep it at my desk. It's a cool retro look, but I've found it's a great way to get a conversation going and getting no coiners, pre-coiners, early coiners to make their first Lightning payment, which is awesome. So the number of consumers ready to spend on Lightning definitely seems to be increasing. As we think about like the end goal, what number of users would you ready to spend Lightning would you think we'd have to have before you walk in confidently to say like Walmart or McDonald's and say this is a payment method you need to accept? How ubiquitous do you think adoption needs to be before something like this can get on mainstream point of sale systems? And is that the goal, or if not, why not?
I think for us personally, we approach it in a different way. It's more like there is another source of income you can have, a global currency, rather than there is this huge people. And there's a lot of people since the beginning very wealthy in Bitcoin that they want places to spend their coins. So that's one of the reasons. It also depends on the industry we're talking about, because for instance, like airports, it's an interesting place to actually have Bitcoin businesses because people travel all around the world. They pay like exchange fees. So it also depends on which industry we are targeting.
We have Fly by Bit here, correct? That's
yeah, Travel by Bit.
Travel by Bit, yeah, that's right. See them in Australia frequently.
Yes, they have
awesome
ATM.
Product.
Yeah. They have ATMs in airports, and that makes sense because most of the people that travel, they are currently all the time changing currencies and they incurring fees. So if we can have something global, that might be a positive. It's probably not a need, but it's something that is better than the current system.
Cool.
If I can add, like,
yeah.
I think just to, I guess, bring a bit of a discussion, like if you put on the hat of being like Amazon, say, or some other big e-commerce company, that like at which percentage usage does it make sense to divert R&D efforts to this fringe payment methods supported by cypherpunks and so on. Like, is it 1%? I don't know. Is it more than 1%? Let's say 1%. Like, just Amazon alone, in just the United States alone, does 8 million payments on an average day. Not like a holiday sale or anything. 8 million per day, only Amazon, only US, right? And so, okay, 1% of that, right? 80,000 consumer payments. Is Bitcoin doing that right now? Nah, probably not. Not even close to there, right? So I think, and this is also like why we at Reev are not working directly with the merchants, but we're using gift cards. In the meantime, sort of, well, so we can provide utility to this group as it grows. And so, yeah, like, my hunch is that as the numbers grow, it will happen naturally. Like, if there are customers they want to pay with something, they will. The merchants will show up.
Yeah, and a interesting parallel from a few years ago, Square actually accepted Bitcoin payments for a little while in 2013 or 2014. They weren't doing it. We weren't doing it a real way. But there was acceptance, exchange into fiat. But when there was not a ton of usage, it eventually got dropped. Same with Stripe, which did the same thing. So I think we want to be really strategic about when and how we do this, because we don't want it to end up looking like some exchange that listed its 1,000th altcoin, and then all of a sudden it's more work to maintain than new business bringing in. So
I think it also depends on the need of the business. So, for instance, in the US, you have CBD businesses where they have a really big friction with like payment processors. So for them, naturally, this might be a solution they want to use. So for us as an opener, it's easy to sell them this rather than an Amazon. So that also depends on what kind of problems those businesses have in the current financial system.
yeah, I want to double click on that with you. What do you see with your merchants in terms of merchants holding on to their Bitcoin versus converting it to fiat right away?
The percentage of merchants that's exchanged to fiat is actually very small. It's like I would say less than 10%. So most of the business hold the Bitcoin or withdraw the Bitcoin. However, those 10% are businesses that do high value transactions, meaning that their volume in monthly is way bigger than the other businesses.
And Britt, I have a question for you. Obviously, you don't have data on your merchants, but I recall some discussions a few months back about creative ways to allow your merchants to cash out to fiat if they want to. Obviously, there's no KYC, self-sovereign service, so you can't really touch the fiat rails directly. Have you guys thought of some creative ways, maybe partnering peer-to-peer between them, or maybe setting up like some, I believe I heard the term merchant guild tossed around at some point. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is something in BTC Pay called the transmuter, created by contributor Cooks, who's here today. If you're interested in a type of service like that, come find us and we can talk to you about it. And basically, you can do some really cool things with the transmuter. Besides just converting from Bitcoin to fiat, you can actually do all kinds of automated processes with the transmuter. And basically what you do is you can set up triggers in BTC Pay. So like when an invoice is paid or when an on-chain transaction has been confirmed, certain things like that, you can set up automatic triggers such as sending money to an exchange to cash to fiat, or even sending just emails to your users. Like if we possibly wanted to obsolete Meetup, we could probably do that with this service. So if you're into some automated things, BTC Pay can also do that. So come find us if you're interested in that. Cool.
In recent weeks with Facebook Libra and the emergence of other stable coins and whatnot, I recall in May or June, Bitfinex talking about maybe putting Tether on Lightning. Are stable coins on Lightning something you guys have thought a lot about? Do you think it makes it more attractive as a payment option? Or I just wanted to toss that question out here. I haven't seen any progress on that Bitfinex news, but.
So Bitrefill, John from our team is participating a bit in the project that you mentioned. I think from our perspective, there's a lot of people are using stable coins, mostly Tether, and somewhat then drop off curve of the other ones. There is usage, and I mean the benefits of Lightning of being instant and convenient and safe from errors is something that I think would very much benefit those use cases. So there is like the more philosophical question of whether you believe stable coins are a good idea or not, which maybe is like outside of the scope of this conference. I don't know, but like given that a lot of people today see value in stable coins, I think it makes sense for the stable coins to have Lightning as well.
Sweet. I want to know, what does it look like to each of you in terms of like user experience being successful on Lightning? Do you imagine a world in a few years where perhaps users don't even realize they're using Lightning? It's just so dead simple and automated that that complexity is abstracted away. You already see it this year in the last 8 or 9 months, just getting so much simpler and so much progress being made on a daily basis.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. When you pay an invoice in BTC Pay, it's one button click away. So you just need to know that you need a different QR code, essentially. So it's very easy to just not need to know the difference at some point, which there was a really good talk in Riga that I saw from Bitrefill about the 2 types of users in the network from some of the data. And I think that it is true that there are obviously technical and advanced users like the people here, but there is a very large community of users who are just wanting to buy something. They really don't care too much about how they do it. And so the user experience is definitely a very big priority in BTC Pay, and I also think in many services working with Lightning.
Cool. I think an under-discussed aspect of working with Lightning for merchants and businesses is some of the complexity with some of the back office stuff, accounting, treasury, taxes, all those various pieces. It seems to me like each company kind of deals with them individually on an individual basis right now. And I'm curious if you guys are open to or have discussed maybe open sourcing some of these tools so that the dev time can be spent on real tangible progress, not each team recreating processes individually.
I know there's been a lot of talk about that with teams in this space already, and a good example of this is Alex Bosworth released his Lightning accounting that we personally use. I know a bunch of other teams do, and just small contributions like that can be shared around, forked, and kind of made to your own needs have been incredibly valuable. I would like to figure out some way that we could do it even more, because I know that we're all chasing the same exact problems. And they may not all be on the technical side. It could be also on all the support around. And so, yeah, I think we need to do that.
I think we're right now the 3 startups on this panel. We're all, I would say, in the small scrappy startups figuring out product market fit questions category, right? And so whereas like if you want to work with open source in a very serious way, like it requires certain way of thinking that I think we all need to be better at. But also realistically, we also have a lot of other headaches to worry about as well, and a lot of our stuff is like custom for something that only we have and so on. But I think what we have with BTC Pay Server is actually like an excellent example of a project that builds first both like an entire system, but I also think that like if somebody like cut up BTC Pay Server into small bits and pieces, then it would also be very useful for people who want to only use this part of it or that part of it, and have that become, you know, the open source payments stack that is free for people to use.
Love that. Love that. All right, we have 30 seconds left, and I want to go rapid fire down the line. Prediction for Lightning Network 2020. let's all get back on this panel again next year, wherever we are, and see how it goes, or see how these predictions go.
I'll go first. I think a safe prediction is that we're going to see existing stores of capital start to be diverted into Lightning, whether that's exchanges, us working on the kind of loyalty and reward side, on payments as well, and all three of those represent huge volumes, and I expect that we're going to see growth just at least from just that alone.
I would say we'll probably see at least one bigger exchange to actually adopt this technology, and we'll see way more onboarding ramps.
My prediction is probably that there will be, first I want to say that I do think that the sats back from some of the services would be really influential in places like the United States, where you basically can't buy anything without giving your phone number for points back. It's like kind of a very ingrained system. Like, if I don't want to give my phone number, my friends that are with me are like, let me give you my phone number, let me give you, they want the points so badly that I think the sats back might be an influential trend for sure.
Cool.
So I'll predict that more than half of the payments on Bitrefill in the year 2020 at some point will be on Lightning. But I want to bounce it back to you, Mr. Cash App. The question that everyone wants to ask.
I'll defer to an answer that Jack Dorsey gave in a podcast, that it's a question of when, not if. And on that, let's wrap up this panel. Thank you guys.